And every time I talk to one of these presidents in one of these other locations, the message is the same. Bobby, that was a terrible mistake, right? We never should have done it.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Bobby Watson, president of United Steelworkers Local 971, which represents production workers at the Westrock paper mill outside of Fort Mitchell, Alabama, in Cottonton, Alabama. Bobby, thanks for taking the time to talk to us this morning. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Jacob, good to see you again. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, it's funny. I think you have been engrossed in this lockout for the past week, and I have as well. I had a piece go out on the Real News last week talking about it, and so there are a lot of folks that already have an understanding of what's going on. But for people that are listening to us on the radio, we didn't actually get to tell them, we weren't actually able to lay out the situation for them last week. So there are probably people that are listening to us on the radio that have no understanding of what's going on at this paper mill, of what has been going on, what the company is doing. So we're going to kind of back up a little bit from some of the conversations that we've been having, just to lay a little bit of foundation for people that are brand new to this conversation about this lockout that's happening down in Cottonton, Alabama. So first, help us get an understanding of what goes on in this paper mill. What do y'all do?
Okay, so we're located down on the Chattahoochee River, in between Eufaula and Phoenix City, Alabama. And our paper mill started up in December of 1966, which was originally a Georgia-Alabama craft mill. And then it changed to Mead coated board. And then from there, we went to a Mead Westvaco when Mead and Westvaco Corporation merged. And so now we are currently Westrock, which is the combination of Mead Westvaco and Rock 10 Corporation. So we're a consumer mill. We make consumer packaging paper. It's a coated natural craft, we call it, ranging anywhere from 16 caliper all the way up to about a 30 caliper. So we produce packaging for beer cartons, cereal boxes, any kind of product that's packaged in that kind of paper.
And this location, this mill, is right south of Fort Benning, a little bit east of or a little bit west of the Columbus area, Columbus, Georgia. Is that right?
That's correct. So the labor force there consists of some people from, like you said, all from Phoenix City, Columbus, Eufaula area, Fort Mitchell, Fort Benning area, some as far out as even Opelika. So it's a big swath of the population there in this area.
And I saw from a local. Yeah, I saw from a local newscast that that the Mart Mill, owned by Westrock, is the largest employer in Russell County. So
Yes.
this really affects a lot of people. And so, working in this mill, what are the kind of dangers that y'all encounter when you're working in this mill?
So for someone that has never worked in the paper industry or a paper mill, I can remember when I first walked into that mill back when I was 26 years old, and was kind of taken back at the massive size of the equipment and all that entailed. So there's lots of ropes that carry the paper through the machinery, lots of big giant rolls with lots of nip and crush points, calendar stacks, and lots of high pressure steam for the drying, lots of chemicals. It's a dangerous place to work. Um, but it's becoming a safer place to work through all the innovation and applications toward keeping people safe. Used to, you could recognize a paper maker in one of these mills because they were usually missing a limb or something. But
I seen a
it's
few people on the picket
very
line this. I seen a few people on the picket line this week that was missing some fingers, at least.
yeah. So it's not it's a dangerous place to work, and that's one of the reasons that the salaries in these mills are like they are
Hmm.
because of that. It's such a dangerous place to work, and then you work these shift schedules that are very demanding on people. So
Right, and
uh,
let's get into that a little bit, because I one of the things that frustrated me about and I think a lot of your members about some of the local news coverage is they would state your salaries, which are they're fine, they're put y'all solidly kind of in the middle class, a good blue collar manufacturing type job, that kind of salary, but it's y'all aren't making 200 quarter million $500,000 a year, right? Y'all are still definitely just working people, and they were quoting this like, oh, these are such good paying jobs, whatever, without giving people an understanding of the danger that you put yourselves in, and without giving people an understanding of the hours that you work. So y'all work what you call a, quote, reverse southern swing. Tell the audience what that shift schedule looks like.
so at Mark, we work the reverse southern swing, and so typically what that is, or what that actually looks like, is your shift rotation starts on a Wednesday night at midnight. So you'll go to work and you'll start that Wednesday night at midnight, and you'll work 7 days in a row. Excuse me. You work 7 days in a row. So you get off work that Wednesday morning, right? And then you'll be off that Wednesday, and then you'll be off that Thursday, and then your second rotation, which is your evening shift, starts on that Friday at 4 p.m. So you'll work 7 days in a row on that evening shift, 4 to 12 p.m. So you'll get off work that following Thursday at midnight, and then you'll get the next day, Friday. That's your one off day in between your evening and your day shift. So you'll come in Saturday morning at 8 a.m. and you'll start your day shift, and that runs all the way through Friday, 7 more days. And that's when you get off at 4 p.m. on Friday. That's what they call your long weekend. So that's your one weekend off a month. So you'll get off that Friday afternoon, and then you won't report back to Wednesday at midnight, and you'll start the rotation all over again. But if you never ever work that schedule, by the way, so the staffing levels and everything in these mills are such that most of the time you're working 12-hour shifts. So these 7 days in a row that you find yourselves working are mostly 12-hour shifts. So by the time your long weekend rolls around, you're pretty wore out, and it's just a cycle, over and over and over again. So you just miss a lot, right? You miss a lot of living, you miss a lot of life because you're pouring yourself into these meals, and kind of what you alluded to. Yeah, the salaries are a little above average compared to some of the other wages you see in the industries around us, but that's the kind of the trade-off, right? That's the
Mm-hmm.
sacrifice for doing these kinds of jobs. So you make that little extra, to be able to send your kid to college, or take that nice vacation with the family, and then maybe put back a little more toward retirement than the average person may could do.
Right, but like you said, that's the trade-off. Is that
Right.
there were some folks when I was down there that told me that you're able to. The trade-off is that basically you provide financially for your family, but you're not. In a lot of cases, it becomes much more difficult, or you are not as able to provide, emotional and physical and being present type support. You're able to give them a good living, your family. Maybe your wife is able to stay home, which is not a luxury that a lot of people have anymore. And so, they're very thankful for that. But then the wife is able to stay home, but the husband is almost never there. Or it's a lot more difficult for them to be there than other people. And this trade-off over the last 4 or 5 contracts has become less appealing to people, because over the last 4 or 5 contracts, they have been continuing to take and not keep raises up with inflation, take a little bit there, take a little bit here, and that is what has led to your short staffing problem. Folks told me that y'all are about 100 people short, and that's why you're the people that are still there having to work these 12-hour, these 16-hour, sometimes more hour shifts. And then on top of this, they're trying to take even more from you. And so finally, y'all just said enough is enough. But it seems almost from a business standpoint, they're having such a hard time getting people in the door now as it is. How is it not anything but good for their business model to keep what y'all have in this contract, at least, if not make it better? Because obviously they're having trouble recruiting people.
Yeah, I scratch my head at this company's decision to bring this fight to our mill at this time, right? Doesn't make absolutely any sense. So you're absolutely correct. The shortage that we see in our staffing are unheard of. We haven't seen it this bad. I mean, they've always understaffed. The way the corporation looks at this, Jacob, is that 18 to 20% of overtime for employees is acceptable to them, because they limit the what they call roll up cost to adding more employees. So we all understand how that works. You add employees, so then you got the benefits, you got all the wages, everything that goes along with adding that other employee. So they kind of try to find a balance towards their staffing levels to where they don't have those additional roll-up costs and they're still able to get things done. So typically that balance is somewhere between 18 and 20%. So, but what we've been seeing at our mill is those overtime levels have been exceeding 40%, twice, what the normal. So they've clearly understaffed, and they haven't been addressing it. And we've been after them for quite some time, and folks have just been so out of balance that they've had enough of it, especially with this latest contract offer that's clearly having us take concessions.
Right. And so let's talk about the concessions that they're trying to get y'all to accept. Of course, in this contract, they have maintained the concessionary raises. They're just 2% annual raises, which is really not common in today's inflationary environment. But in addition to that, they're trying to take away what y'all call in the industry hog law and your Sunday penalty pay. Explain to us what those two provisions are.
Okay, so the contract language that they're trying to actually buy from our union members here that run this mill are actually protections. They're supposed to be deterrents from a corporation, overworking an employee. And so those language protections are centered around the over 16, the over 24, the holiday, and working on Sunday language. And what that states is that if you work an individual 7 days a week, right, and you work him on Sunday, then Sunday is paid at time and a half. So the over 16 language says that if you work an employee over 16 hours, then you're going to back up and you're going to pay that employee overtime rate from the very first hour he came into work until he's had an 8-hour period of rest. And the same thing with the 24-hour language, it operates the same way, right? So if something comes up in the mill and you say, hey, I need you to stay, then he's paid at overtime rate, time and a half, for every hour he's been at work during that 24-hour period until he's had an 8-hour rest period off from work. Those penalties exist because they shouldn't, and even both sides agree, right, that they shouldn't be working individuals these kinds of hours. And those penalties are there, so when those things happen, everybody recognizes that should be done. There is language in our contract that says that you can't be forced to work over 16 hours, right? So when the company comes to an employee and says, whatever's going on, that they need their expertise to stay, to keep the mill running, then that's the penalty that they pay, right? So that person makes that extra money, and rightfully so. So now the corporation, Westrock, comes in and says, well, we just want to eliminate that language. We no longer want to abide by these penalties if these situations arise and we have to work these employees these excessive hours, which our labor union thinks is absolutely ludicrous, right? Because it's completely under their control. You're the one that controls the staffing of the mill. So look, staff the mill, and this language isn't a problem. And if it does come up that you need some certain employee's expertise to get us out of a jam or to keep production rolling, then that person's entitled to that money, right?
Right.
You've kept them there all them hours. We really don't understand why we're even fighting over this stuff, to be honest with you. Where it gets tricky is the Sunday language. So most paper mills years past, they all had this language, right? That says Sunday, you're going to get paid at rate plus 1/2 just because it's Sunday. Mm-hmm. So they've systematically started eliminating this type of language out of labor agreements with these other paper industries for years. I think they said since the 1990s, I think. So what we've been telling the corporation is that March families and March communities in the surrounding area still hold Sunday as a special day, right? We don't think that we should be working. We should be spending that time with our families. So if you require us to work that day, then that's going to be paid at that rate plus 1/2. They're wanting to eliminate that language. They tell us that Sunday is just another day. So they don't think they should pay that penalty anymore for you working on Sundays.
Right.
So somehow over the years, their view has changed. So this language has been in our contract for a long time, and like we just stated, it's been in other contracts in the industry as well, and it's being bought off. So March simply standing up and saying, look, this language isn't for sale. We still hold these things to be dear. We still think that's the way it should be in America, right? I mean,
well, yeah,
for all the reasons that you stated earlier.
Right, and something that you've told me is that when you work somebody 7 days a week without any rest in a 7-day period, there should be a penalty to be paid for that, and I think that that's very reasonable. And this hog law stuff is to, you said that both sides agree. You don't want people working over 16 hours, and they're already working people over 16 hours, asking people to work 16 hours and more sometimes. And you've said that over 40%, so we're getting close to half of the hours in this mill are overtime hours, which is just not acceptable. And management and the executives are clearly not doing their part, right? Presumably management is supposed to be doing something. They're supposed to be working somehow, and it seems like part of that job would be you keep the thing staffed, and they're not able to do that right now. And so the worry is that if y'all remove these penalties for working people 7 days in a row, if you remove these penalties for working people over 16 hours, that they're just going to do it even more. And that seems like a reasonable worry. And, that it shows that this is clearly not about just the money, because they offered y'all a $28,000 ratification bonus in this, total. There's stuff here, some buyouts here, and some signing bonuses, and you add all that up, and it was $28,000 if you accepted these concessions, lump sum, one check. And y'all turned that down because you said no, and you turned it down resoundingly. Like 90-something% of the people voted it down because you're like, no, our time away from work is important, and we're worried that you're going to take more of it if we give you this language. And so you turned it down, and the company locked y'all out on Thursday. How have, in the, we're about, I guess, 48 hours out from the lockout, what's the fallout been from that? How have your members been responding? And I don't know how many stories y'all are getting, kind of from the inside of the mill, the salary people, or how much y'all would want to tell us. But what's the fallout been like for your members and the running of the mill?
So let me say, first of all, I was just humbled at the response from our membership, right? To just overwhelmingly say no thank you to the money that the corporation was throwing at them to buy our contract language, right? So that screams that all of us are being overworked and we're tired of it. And it's not about the money. It's about these language protections and our values and what we stand for. And they need to stay in that contract, because we look to this labor agreement as both a social and an economic agreement between, right, the people and the employer. And so it's a two-way street. And so there should be balance there. Once the company decided to lock us out Thursday morning, of course, it was a somber kind of, people were just, man, I've been working this mill for 30 years plus, right? And they just couldn't believe it, right? That an employer would take that kind of position over them with what was on the table, right? The issues that were on the table, just refusing to talk about it. So once the shock got over and everybody rallied on the streets and then now continue, we got our picket schedule up and running, and so they're making the most out of that. I mean, you're seeing families and kids and children, and so they're starting to have fun with it, right? Mm-hmm. So it's growing into a realization that we're locked out of our meal, we don't have a paycheck coming in. But wow, we're connecting with people throughout our meal. I mean, there's 467 of us. We all work in the same area. So now we've got a chance to, mingle with one another, people we don't have normal day-to-day contact, meet their families, and have a good time, eat meals together. We're grilling, hot dogs and hamburgers, and we're just making the most of it. And we're hoping at some point that the company will come around to their senses, right? One thing interesting, in our 15 hours before this corporation decided to lock our employees out, they called for an important meeting. So we all showed up, and they just was the only thing they were really interested in was the union ready to just give in, right? Mm. And give up. So I looked to our plant manager and I told him, I said, listen, you have got a golden opportunity right here. I have never, ever seen this mill this united. You have a golden opportunity to turn this into something very positive, depending on what direction that you decide to take. I mean, we could literally be breaking production records right now, as unified as this mill is, and if they were just to take, one step in the right direction here on these issues, but instead they're just obviously not going to do that, and he's going to go down a different road. And my fear is just cause irreparable damage to the relationship between the corporation and the employees in this community, right? And these families. It's a sad thing, and I just don't understand why they look at it this way. Um, they get upset, when we're talking to them in negotiations and refer to this meal as our meal, right?
Mm.
They remind me, no, this is our meal, right? So we get that it's their assets, right? But we're the group of people in there making this thing go, right? Making these people millions of dollars of profit. And we're a very good team together. We're very efficient. That mill runs like a sewing machine, right? 97% efficiencies. This mill is a moneymaker for these people. And it's because that all of us take ownership in it, right? We're good at what we do. And we make the sacrifices with our homes and stay out there and keep this place going, and it's worked. And now they're just they want to tear all that down, just to squeeze the margins a little bit more, so they can dump more money in the pockets.
Right, and that's the thing is that they don't even have any, any sort of economic justification for this. Maybe back in the 70s and the 80s, we could some of the things that the manufacturing folks were and the the industries and the unions were butting heads about was that there was legitimate compression in the industry, right? And that's just not the case. That is not the case at all with Westrock. They made $3.4 billion last year. Their CEO last year got a 300% raise and a $1.5 million bonus. This is just not a company that needs to ask its workers. There is no need at this company for the workers to sacrifice. There's none at all because it's doing so well. And you talked about the unity that y'all are having in your shop at Mart Mill, and you've also seen a lot of support from other Westrock Union members across the country. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, so we've been contacted by just about every mill in the Westrock organization offering their support. Many of them have wrote scathing letters to our CEO, right, in support of the Mart location. And so, you're seeing this ripple effect all over the entire organization, where people are standing up for this fight. A lot of these locations were in this fight before us, and they agreed to deals where they sold this same type of language that we're fighting to keep in our contract now. And every time I talk to one of these presidents in one of these other locations, the message is the same. Bobby, that was a terrible mistake, right? We never should have done it. And so this thing has just come full circle. And now, like I said, the Westrock Corporation has brought this fight to Mart, and Mart's simply standing up and saying, no, thank you, right? It's not about the money. It's about the protections that we offer, we have in our contract agreement, right? Sunday's not just another day here in this area, in this community, in the lives of our families. It just puzzles me that corporate America has adopted the position that, Sunday's just another work day for their workforce, right? Hey, you look back in these old contract agreements, and those ideals used to be important, not only to us as families and neighbors and friends, but it also used to be important to business leaders, right? And they took care of their employees. They understood that. And that was just the trade-off. And as long as everybody's profitable and everybody's good, that's exactly right. And I'm gonna work this man on Sunday, then I'm gonna pay him a little bit extra, right? Where have those ideals gone with these people at the top now?
Right.
And I've asked them myself when I've had the opportunity to sit down and eat lunch, what's changed with you guys at the top? I mean, you'd like to think, Jacob, that these people that run these corporations, these distinguished individuals, if you want to refer to them as that they should, I mean, they're supposed to be the ones that have arrived, right? So they're supposed to hold dear those important ideals and integrity and character that leaders should exhibit, right? And so they're the ones that should understand the most how important these things are to families and the American fabric, right, of society. Like me and you spoke earlier, and I alluded to this, right? You hear all this chatter way up top in these boardrooms and these people that making millions of dollars, and they want to talk about the moral decay of America and all the ills that you see here, right? And at the same time, they pass this garbage back down to the working man, right? And just Sunday's just another day, folks, right? So they say one thing and then you see them doing another, right?
Right. Well, Bobby, I know that we're rooting for you up here in Huntsville. Is there anything that our listeners can do to support y'all right now?
So yeah, just get out there on the social media any way you can, right? And send the message to corporate America that, you know, this is about more, and this is about our families. This is about what's important and about life, right? In general. And it's wrong for these corporations to be sucking all these millions of dollars up at the top and keeping it up there. Everybody has heard on the news and everywhere else, they always talk, you see this big disparity, right, of between the corporate elites and the working guy, and how it's been growing over the years. So this fight right here is just another example of that, right? They just want to reach in the pockets of the working man, take from him, and pass it back up to the big bankers and the shareholders and put it in their pockets. This Westrock Corporation, by the way, has already got a ROE, that's a return on investment, so that it's already between 7 and 10% now with things just like they are. So this attack on our mill isn't hurting their bottom line, not one penny. So I would just ask that everybody join in this fight, blast them out. I'm gonna send a clear message that what they're doing is wrong, and support us.
Bobby Watson, president of USW Local 971, representing production workers at the Mart Mill Paper Mill in Cottonton, Alabama. Thank you for taking the time today. Oh, really quick, I'm sorry. Mel asked if do y'all have a 2-tier wage structure over there?
No.
We don't. Okay. Well, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. Bobby, thanks for taking the time today.
Thank you for your struggle as well. We're going to be
you.
cheering you on from North Alabama.
Yeah.
Thank you much. I'll keep up the good work.
Thank you, sir. You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.